Hey, thank you for joining me on The Lookout Guy. I'm Michael Tobin, and I am your Lookout Guy. This episode is titled, what should I title it? Things the Lookout Guy listens to. This is the first of what is going to be a growing list of things the Lookout Guy listens to, and I can't think of anybody off the top of my head right now more than giving a shout out as a first of who knows how many episodes this will be, but things the Lookout Guy listens to. I listen to a lot of things. I listen to a lot of podcasts like preaching and different churches and biblical educational podcasts, and I also listen to local radio, and I could really only find 2 stations that are actually available online on iHeartRadio, which my podcast is also available on, among quite a few other podcast apps, but I won't mention them right now. You'll probably see it in one of my descriptions somewhere, but okay, Castbox, Spotify, Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, Podcast Addict, Castbox, Breaker, and those are just probably half of them that I could think of off the top of my head. But there's KOGO in San Diego I like to listen to. It's my hometown, my home county, and KFI, and that covers Los Angeles all the way down to San Diego, and it also goes pretty far north into San Luis Obispo. As a matter of fact, I found out last weekend when I drove up to the San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara area, I was able to listen to KOGO. I like AM radio because you get to hear the traffic report every 10 minutes, and it has been helpful more times than I can even count. So I recommend listening to local AM radio while you drive in other towns as well as your own town. So that's why I like to listen to radio. You get the news breaks every 10 minutes, and everything that's actually current. So my first things the Lookout Guy listens to is going to be actually my favorite radio show host. As far as local radio stations are concerned, of course, national radio, you can't beat Rush Limbaugh, you can't beat Dan Bongino, which is now going to take at least 5 markets. I can't remember the radio company, but he's going to get the 12 noon to 3 p.m. slot, the rush hour slot, and it's actually the most major radio company. So Chicago, and I can't remember the other names of the major cities, but San Diego and Los Angeles isn't one of them, unfortunately. I would love to start listening to Dan Bongino live on my earbuds while I'm at work during the rush hour, so I'll find a station on iHeartRadio. I also recommend iHeartRadio for podcasts, as well as Spreaker. That's my main podcast platform is Spreaker, Spreaker, and all you got to do on any of those podcast apps, is look up my name, Michael D. Tobin, or you could look up The Lookout Guy. So I like to listen to iHeartRadio, join in on any radio station, listen to good music, your favorite music, and, develop your own playlist. The free options, unless you want to go the paid subscription, I don't know, maybe it's $7 a month or something, but I don't subscribe to that at the moment. So I like to listen to podcasts, local radio, national radio, and national podcasts. But my favorite local radio DJ, he starts at 6 p.m. Pacific time, and he has a 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 4-hour slot, and that would be Tim Conway Jr. And I was listening to him on my way home because I got off a little bit late, and he told a story about a dog that his sister in Oregon has, and it would nudge. See, this is going to be a mysterious dog stories short segment, and he told a story that his sister's dog would nudge his nose on his sister's armpit for some odd reason suddenly. And after a few days of that happening, his sister went to the doctor to get checked out because she was wondering why her dog was so persistent on that unusual behavior. Turns out that she had breast cancer, and she got it looked at, and it was an early detection, and she recovered from that as a result of her dog. So Tim Conway was interviewing Dr. Ray Cashera of Orange, California, which is in Southern California. He has him on the show, kind of on a daily basis, or every couple days, or a few days, and they were talking about COVID-19, and because of Tim Conway Jr., the actor Tim Conway, his son, he told Dr. Ray Cashera about, his sister's dog. So before going to the break, Dr. Ray Cashera says, hey, I'll go ahead and share you a spooky story about a dog. And I won't kill the story for you. I'll just say that the dog, see, when a doctor says that a dog story is spooky, it's a very good story, and it actually turned out to be a good story. But I would love to have had that dog, but the reaction to why it was spooky, you'll go ahead and hear. So I'd just like to say that the outcome of that story is kind of a bummer, even though Dr. Ray Cashera and Tim Conway Jr. kind of had the same sentiments. So it's all in how you feel about animals. So I'll go ahead and get into it right now, and then call it a wrap right after that. This is a pretty neat idea I had. One of the ideas that I finally got around to for my podcast. So thank you for joining me again. I'm Michael Tobin, your lookout guy. And before getting into it, as I've been saying for the past years, this is March already. It's March 18th, 2021. For the past whole year since March of last year, when the so-called epidemic restrictions started to begin in all of the states, as well as around the world, I have been sharing a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week prayer hotline, and it's from the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, which I am associated with as a Billy Graham Rapid Response Team chaplain since 2003. But I was thrilled to have this, and I've called it already, and it is so good to call for prayer, especially if it's something that you want to keep confidential with somebody who actually cares. So that number, we all need prayer. is 1-888-388-2683. Go ahead and call this number. I wholly recommend it. I had like a 10-minute conversation with one of the operators on the phone, and it really was a relief to be able to talk about what my prayer request was and to get the actual prayer with somebody, because the Lord said that where two or more are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst. It really is true, and you could feel the Lord's presence when you're praying with somebody. So that number again, call it 1-888-388-2683. That's 1-888-388-2683. And I go into this short segment for the first episode of What Does the Lookout Guy Listen To? And that's with Dr. Ray Kashera of Orange and KFI AM 640 talk show host Tim Conway Jr.
Dr. Ray, welcome back. So you got yourself a pretty sweet dog story, huh?
Oh yeah, there was an older person resident, and I was one of the physicians that would go there. But I was actually kind of in charge of it, and there were some folks who were ill and were kind of expected to die, and they liked having a dog around. So we got a black lab, and everybody loved this black lab. And the black lab kind of had the run of the facility. Well, the black lab would take to sleeping at the foot of certain people's beds.
Oh, no.
And, we would sleep at the foot of the bed, and that person would pass, and we would sleep at the foot of another person's bed, and that person would pass. And this happened 3 or 4 times, and all the people were expected to pass, but then he slept at the foot of the bed of somebody who was completely healthy. And the next day, that person passed, and that spooked the place. Yeah, and that was the end of the black lab. They found a new home for that black lab.
Yeah, get that dog the F away from me. Man, I'd be kicking that dog all night. Hell away from me. But you almost said a term that we don't use anymore, but I still sort of use it, and I haven't been condemned for it yet. But when you and I were growing up, we're about the same age, we used the term old folks home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And
I don't know what's wrong with that. I mean, they're old folks, and it's their home.
Yeah. And it was very nice. It was a very nice place, and they all wanted to be there. Nobody was forced to be there.
Right.
We sometimes call them nursing homes.
Or convalescent homes, I remember that.
Yeah. So, I don't know. But, I think, I kind of think a lot of older folks are going to be less inclined to go into those facilities now. And I'll tell you why.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Once you go into that facility, they have the ability to lock you down. That's exactly what they did all around the country. People who voluntarily went into these facilities to live were told, okay, you now are locked down. You cannot leave your residence. And that's been that way for a year. I think it's going to have a significant impact on those places.
I think you're right. I used to, and I still do, I'm very close with the people who run Roundtree Gardens, which is a retirement village, right, in Orange County. And they locked down early. The first wind they caught of it, they said, this is not going to be part of Roundtree Gardens. And they did not lose a single person to COVID. And they locked that down, and everyone there felt safe. And it was almost like an island in Orange County where you knew you were not going to catch it.
Yeah, and that's wonderful. And my dad actually lives in such a place, but not here, not in Indiana. And the thing is, though, it's been hard on those people. They've been socially isolated for a long time. And it's much worse when old people are socially isolated than when middle-aged or even young people are socially isolated. It's been really, really hard on those people.
Yeah, it's tough because as you get older, and you've watched everything you want on TV, it's the grandkids that keep you going.
Oh, it's the grandkids. It's a little bit of social interaction every day.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you don't have that, they really get depressed and they get withdrawn. It's a difficult situation.
All right, doctor. Here's one last question. If you had the four vaccines in front of you, was it AstraZeneca? Then you have Johnson and Johnson. You got Pfizer and you got Moderna. You got all four of them on the table. You know, it's like a cigarette girl in Vegas. Get your shots here. AstraZeneca, get your COVID shots. Johnson and Johnson, who wants it? Which one would you buy off the cigarette lady?
Pfizer.
Pfizer. Wow.
Yeah. Now, you need to understand something. I actually got Moderna, and my wife actually got Moderna. And the reason we got Moderna is that that's what was available when we went. And I have no problem with that. I absolutely would take Moderna. But the reason I would take Pfizer is that it's got the best profile against the variants. It also has only a 3-week lag between the two shots, so you get immunity faster. And it's been extensively tested all around the world. So I'd probably get Pfizer.
You know,
my next choice would be, and then my next choice would probably be Johnson & Johnson because it's one shot.
Right, okay.
And it's also been tested against the South African variant. Third choice would be Moderna, and then the fourth choice would be AstraZeneca. Not that I think AstraZeneca's vaccine is dangerous, but it's not yet approved in this country, so it would be my fourth choice.
I saw something today online. There's a company selling shirts, hats, and pants that have a V on them, and that means you're telling everybody you're vaccinated. You think it's a good idea?
I don't know. I don't like doing stuff like that, but I do think, listen, I'll tell you what, I've got my vaccine card in my wallet. I carry it with me because I think, we're going to wind up going to restaurants that are going to want to see that, and sporting events and airplanes and all that kind of stuff. So,
but you run the risk of losing your card. Would you be better off tattooing it to your one of your cheeks and one of your buttocks?
Well, I also have it on my phone, so I'd have to lose my wallet and my phone. I guess I could do that simultaneously, but then I could call where I got the vaccine, and they could say that I got it.
Or you have it tattooed on your belly. Let's get matching tattoos. Let's get matching tattoos. I have 0. How many do you have?
I have 0 too.
Ah, really? I bet you had like 5 or 6 from your early days.
No, I'm a 0 guy.
Yeah, so you could be buried in a Jewish cemetery.
You can't if you have tattoos, really?
Yeah, if you have tattoos, you cannot be buried in a Jewish cemetery. I think they overlooked that with some people.
I had no idea. Huh.
That's why I don't get them.
I'll tell you. In my life, I've seen a lot of plastic surgery go wrong, and I've seen some tattoos that were placed when people were young, and then I saw those people when they were old, and it's not a good look. So,
I get it, man. I get it.
I always decided, no, I'm not doing that.
I'm with you, man. All right, Doctor, really appreciate you coming on. Have a great weekend, and I'm going to take a couple days off, so we'll speak to you down the road.
Tim Conway Jr., that's who that was. And you know what he alludes to. He's kind of veiled because he's on a very, very prolific radio station. That's KFI AM 640 that he's found on 6 p.m. Pacific time, weekdays, on KFI AM 640, and you can find that on iHeartRadio. And he was talking with his frequent guest, Dr. Ray Kashera of Orange, California, Southern California. And I know all the arguments, and I've listened to pretty much everything quality. You could do what you're going to do, or you could not do what you're not going to do concerning these. Now, instead of 3, there's 4, these shots, what they're calling a vaccine, which really aren't vaccines, according to a doctor, several doctors that I've listened to. If I'm going to take anything, it will actually be a vaccine, and we're going to find out. So, in the meantime, I choose to not. So how about that dog story? Wasn't that cool? A dog that saved from Tim Conway Jr.'s sister, and the dog that Dr. Ray Kashira spoke about. What an amazing thing. Who knows what else that dog would have been intuitive about. All animals are intuitive. So, and there are senior homes, convalescent homes, or what have you, whatever you want to call them, that are out there for our parents or ourselves to be, where they are very quality. How amazing these homes that they spoke of, where not one person acquired that sickness that's going around. So that's the first episode of what the Lookout Guy listens to, and that would be Tim Conway Jr. on AM 640 Kogo. And prayer. Did this podcast strike anything up that you may be going through? Somebody you know? Call this 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline with the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. I just read that there have been over 437,000 calls, and actually I just read a story, because I get their updates. A little boy was walking on a trail, and he saw a rock, and it had the phone number to this 24-hour, 7-day-a-week prayer line. He was 11 years old, so he called that number, and he accepted Jesus as his Lord and Savior. How awesome is that? He just found a rock with the phone number on it. What are the odds? So, call this number, 1-888-388-2683 for prayer, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I've been sharing this number since its creation, since March of last year. 1-888-388-2683. And thank you for joining me on The Lookout Guy. I'm Michael Tobin, your Lookout Guy. And that number one more time, 1-888-388-2683.